Something happened. You can't even fully explain it, but you suddenly want to go hunting. You didn't grow up hunting, you aren't even sure you know any hunters, and you don't have the first clue about how to go into the wilderness and turn Bambi into edible meat. I know it's overwhelming, but I have 3 tools that are going to help you out. What's up guys, it's Eric from Late to the Game Outdoors, and I am an adult onset hunter. It's a highly technical term physicians use to describe the sudden hunting obsession that overtakes a person later in life. Quick backstory, I went on my first hunt at age 21, and before that I had never even considered hunting. No one in my family hunted. As far as I know, we didn't even know anyone who hunted. It was just not on the radar at all. Then I met the amazing woman who is now my wife, and she came from a long line of hunters. The night I went over to her parents' house for dinner for the very first time, my future father-in-law, who was already huge and at the time was sporting the same biker stash as that guy from American Chopper, he made a point of taking me into his den of death to show off his hunting trophies and also to scare the crap out of me. Yes, it worked, but it also sparked a curiosity in me that led to the last 15 years of my growing hunting obsession. Anyway, as I started hunting with him and then even trying to branch out and hunt on my own, the learning curve was insanely steep. Every new spot, every upgraded piece of gear, I was convinced each time this is the thing that would be the difference maker. Like, now that I have this new rifle, camo, pack, deer spot, boots, tent, whatever it was, I always hoped it would suddenly turn me into an absolute slayer, and it never did. The truth is, hunting is just flat out hard. And when you're trying to figure it out later in life and you don't have this lifetime of lessons learned in the field with dad when you were 12 to fall back on, it feels beyond overwhelming. Maybe you're there right now. Maybe you're already discouraged and you're thinking about quitting before you even get started.
Stop, don't come back.
After 15 years of trying to figure this thing out, I'm still learning new lessons every time I head out. But I can also look back on my earliest years of hunting, and I can think of 3 tools that I use now that I wish I had from the start because they would have really helped shorten that learning curve. So, here we go. The first one is a weapon I was truly proficient with. That may seem obvious, but knowing what I know now, I can't believe I was actually out there trying to shoot animals with just how little I knew about my weapon and how poorly I shot it. My very first hunt was an archery cow elk hunt in Arizona that my father-in-law gifted me the Christmas before I married his daughter. We spent the summer getting me set up on his very first bow, and I was proficient enough to hit a paper plate out to a whopping 30 yards. In his exact words, if it's farther than 30, you probably shouldn't shoot. Opening morning arrived, I hiked out behind him in the dark, and he led me to this brush blind that we had built earlier that summer. He pointed to the southeast and said, "They usually follow this little drainage and come in from over there." Perfect. I sat down, faced that direction, and he kept hiking to his tree stand about a half mile further into the woods. The sun started to rise, no elk were seen, and as an hour or 2 passed, my pre-dawn wake-up call was starting to catch up with me, and I just straight up fell asleep.
You fell asleep?
I'm not sure exactly how long I was out, but I was awakened by the loudest, most terrifying sound I had ever heard directly behind me. I turned my head, and there was a massive bull elk with 6 cows bugling 7 yards behind my blind. Of course, they came in from the exact opposite direction I had been told they would, but I now had to figure out how to shoot one of these cows. I figured all I had to do was slowly drop to my knees, rotate my body 90 degrees, pull an arrow from the quiver, nock it, clip in my release, draw, and shoot. Piece of cake. With 7 sets of eyes standing less than 10 yards from me. As you can imagine, I made it to the middle of about step 2 in that process before they busted me and just tore off into the woods. When I told my father-in-law the story later that morning, he was completely shocked that I didn't think to sit there with an arrow already nocked or to even be looking around in other directions. Who wouldn't know that? Well, frankly, I wouldn't know that. And I think any new hunter just trying to figure things out wouldn't necessarily know that. And don't even get me started on my early rifle work. I borrowed an old 30-06 from my father-in-law, went to the range with him, and immediately scoped myself. And I was just sitting there trying to stop the bleeding with torn off pieces of old targets. I didn't have any sort of bullet drop reticle or turrets I could dial. I didn't even know people did that. I was just hoping to get close enough to an animal that maybe I could get a lucky shot inside of about 200 yards. I'm not proud of that, it's just how little I knew back then. So now, as I look back with a whole lot more practice and information, I wish I had spent the time earlier just really learning my weapon. I wish I had taken some archery lessons. I wish I had researched ballistics and effective ranges. I wish I even knew that broadheads were necessary and that I wasn't just surprised to find different tips on my arrows opening morning of that very first hunt. In short, take the time to really learn your weapon. Lots of arrows in the block, lots of lead down range. Test your limits on paper or steel and make an informed decision in advance about how far is too far when you're thinking about shooting at a live animal. Alright, the second tool I wish I had back then was an effective mapping system. Those first couple years I had a hand-me-down, borrowed, very old school GPS. Basically we marked where the truck was, where our blinds were, and that was it. It was basically insurance against getting lost in the woods and never being found again. Now, that's a great baseline safety measure. Your hunting career will end pretty quickly if you die out there. But what I was missing was the chance to really learn the terrain and begin to figure out where the animals were going and why they were going there. I switched over to Onyx maps years ago, and I haven't pulled out the GPS since. Aside from still being able to drop pins for basic navigation so I can, get back to the truck or camp or wherever, what it's really allowed me to do is learn how animals are using the terrain that I plan to hunt. As I'm out there and I mark animal activity, like I saw a buck right here and there's an elk wallow over there, here's this spring surrounded by tracks. After enough exploring and marking those things, I can pull back out to a wide view and suddenly the pieces of the puzzle start to come together. You can begin to see where the animals are going, why they're going there, and it helps you better predict where they might be next time. And on top of that, the more you start to understand an area, you can now translate that knowledge to other areas you might want to hunt. As you scan the satellite imagery, you start to notice similar features, and it leads you to a great spot to go scout. A simple GPS, or even just a compass and the knowledge that the truck is south of you that can get you home alive, but to really start seeing the big picture of what the animals are doing in that area requires a more robust mapping tool. Listen, I'm not affiliated with Onyx, but for $30 a year for your state on a phone that you already have, I don't think you can beat it. I wish I subscribed to it right at the beginning. Alright, the third and final tool I wish I had way back then was...
Drum roll, please.
This book, How to Hunt, a Total Beginner's Guide to Hunting Big Game. Here's the deal. I know the internet is packed full of hunting information. It's where I learned a lot of what I know. But I also know it can be extremely difficult to find some of the more basic information you're looking for. No disrespect to the experts and heavy hitters in the hunting world, but it seems like so much out there is aimed at the intermediate level hunter. Almost like some of these guys forgot what they didn't know when they first started because they can hardly remember a time when hunting wasn't a part of their life. I wrote this book to be the book I wish existed back when I first started. Even though I've been hunting for a while now, I'm not so far removed that I don't remember all the stupid questions I had but was afraid to ask. A new hunter isn't thinking about the minute details of where exactly to aim on a slightly quartering away shot with a 4-mile-per-hour crosswind. The new hunter is thinking, where am I allowed to hunt? What's the difference between an elk and a deer? Are the exploding arrowheads from Rambo really a thing? And if so, where can I get them? If you're looking for a comprehensive and methodical guide to take you from just trying to figure things out to getting out there with confidence and harvesting some animals, this is it. The book covers things like navigating the rules and regs, weapon selection, finding animals, what to do after the kill, plus a few simple recipes to have all your non-hunting friends saying, seriously, this is game meat? We'll also discuss gear, tactics, shooting technique, and plenty of other things a new hunter needs to know. There's also an extensive glossary in the back to give you simple definitions to all the terms you hear in the hunting world and are too embarrassed to Google. Now, if you're a not-so-new hunter, what's in it for you? Listen, I learned this hunting thing without this book, and I even had a few really good mentors along the way. But it turns out there's a truckload of time and money I could have saved, and bad habits I wouldn't have to break, if I had a methodical approach to getting ready, gearing up, finding animals, and ethically harvesting them. Even if you've already spent a fair amount of time in the field, it's a great double check that there isn't a gap in your approach that's been costing you critters. Plus, every chapter starts with a hunting story, and I'm not shy about all the times I got things absolutely wrong. So if you're looking to know that it's not just you making stupid mistakes out there, and probably grab a few laughs along the way, this book is definitely for you. If you're planning to take a new hunter out with you, which frankly we should all be looking for opportunities to do by the way, this would be a great assigned reading before they head out with you to give them a crash course in what you'll be doing out there. So there you have it, 3 tools that if you don't already have them in your arsenal, you should add them today. Learn your weapon, get a good mapping system, and buy this book. Thanks so much for watching, and if you want to grab a copy of the book, there's a link right over there. Subscribe to the channel right down here, and if you're looking for some hunting inspiration, go ahead and check out the film of my first ever archery bowl right over there.